The throne hall was a cathedral of light and power, built from obsidian and gold that pulsed with alien energy. Firelight reflected off towering pillars etched with moving runes, the air humming with restrained force. At the far end, upon a dais shaped like a crescent moon, stood the Queen of Thalren, radiant, blue-skinned, and impossibly tall. Her armor shimmered like molten sunlight against her skin, each movement scattering reflections across the chamber floor. She was a creature carved from myth, worshipped and feared across entire sectors, her voice known to shatter metal and command storms. And before her stood a single human, unarmed, bruised, wearing the tattered remnants of battlefield gear, daring to speak when most beings could barely breathe in her presence. "Repeat what you just said," the Queen's voice thundered, resonating through the marble. Her soldiers, sleek, pale warriors standing like statues, stiffened instantly. The human swallowed hard but didn't flinch. His name was Mark Halden, an Earthborn engineer turned reluctant diplomat. He'd been captured days ago after his ship crash-landed near the capital of Thalren. He had expected interrogation, maybe execution, but instead had been dragged into this magnificent hall to amuse her radiance. That part hadn't gone as planned. He exhaled, his throat dry but his wit sharper than fear. "I said," he repeated, "your armor's impressive, but I wasn't talking about the metal. I meant what's under it." The silence that followed was so total it felt alive. The chamber guards raised their weapons in a single motion. The Queen's eyes, molten silver beneath the moonlight, widened a fraction. Her expression froze, unreadable. No one in living memory had ever spoken to her that way. The last being to use humor in her court had been reduced to vapor. Yet this man stood there, defiant and alive, the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "You dare," she said softly, and every syllable crackled like lightning on glass. "You address your conqueror with insolence." "No," Mark said, taking a slow breath. "I address someone who's forgotten what it feels like to be talked to, not worshipped." The room shifted. Something invisible rippled between them, not power, but tension that carried a strange warmth. For the briefest instant, the Queen seemed caught off guard. She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. "You presume to know what I have forgotten." "I presume to know what silence sounds like when it lasts too long," he said quietly. The soldiers around the room exchanged uneasy glances, unsure whether to intervene. The Queen descended the steps of her dais, her movements fluid, predatory, beautiful. Each footstep echoed like the toll of a bell. Mark's pulse hammered in his chest, but he refused to step back. When she finally stopped in front of him, she stood close enough that he could see the faint luminescence beneath her skin, veins glowing like starlight. "You are either very brave," she said, "or very foolish." "Usually both," he replied. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, impossibly, the corner of her mouth twitched. It wasn't a smile, not yet, but it was close. The Queen of Thalren, feared destroyer of 3 empires, looked at this battered earthling and felt something she hadn't in centuries, curiosity laced with bewilderment. "Tell me, human," she said, her tone lower now, almost contemplative. "Do all your kind flirt with death this way?" Mark exhaled through a nervous chuckle. "Only the ones who don't have better options." A sound escaped her then, not quite a laugh, more like a breath that trembled between disbelief and amusement. Every soldier in the hall froze, unsure whether to kneel or flee. The Queen blinked slowly, realizing what had just happened. "You made me," she whispered, as though testing the word. "Laugh." The moment shattered like glass when she straightened, her voice regaining its iron edge. "Enough," she said, though the command lacked conviction. "Guards, remove him," she stopped mid-order. Something in the way he looked at her, not fear, not submission, but genuine fascination, rooted her where she stood. "Wait," she murmured, surprising even herself. "Not yet." The guards hesitated, lowering their weapons slightly. The hall's massive doors sealed behind them with a resonant clang, leaving only the 2 of them in the echoing silence. "You mock me before my court," she said, stepping closer, "and yet you stand unbroken. Explain that." "Maybe because you're not what your empire says you are," Mark answered. "You could have killed me twice already. You're curious instead." Her gaze sharpened. "You assume curiosity where there might be restraint." "If you wanted me gone," he said quietly, "I'd already be dust." So which is it? The question lingered between them like a spark that refused to die. She turned away, pacing toward her throne, the golden plates of her armor whispering against each other. You speak as though you have nothing to lose. You're wrong, he said softly. I just stopped pretending I have control. That earned him another glance, slower this time, her eyes tracing his face as though she were seeing something more than a trespasser. Your species fascinates me, she admitted at last. You burn so quickly, yet refuse to dim. You fight for ideals that die before you do. And you, he asked. How long have you been ruling this place? Too long, she said. Long enough to forget the sound of laughter. He almost smiled, though the weight of her words landed heavy in the room. Then maybe it's time to remember, he said. Why? She asked. So that I may seem weaker. So you can seem alive. For the first time, she didn't answer immediately. Her hands clenched at her sides, metal creaking softly. When she finally spoke, her voice was quieter, almost uncertain. You think life is found in laughter. Sometimes it's the only place it hides. She studied him again, that unreadable expression flickering across her features. Your world must be strange, she said finally. It's worse, he replied. It's human. Against all odds, her lips parted, this time in something real. A short, startled laugh escaped her, sharp and brilliant, echoing against the gilded walls like a melody no one remembered. The sound stunned everyone who heard it. The soldiers at the far edges of the hall stared, their faces pale with disbelief. Servants dropped to their knees, muttering prayers. Mark just stood there, amazed. Well, he said softly, guess I'll die happy now. She turned toward him, the laughter still trembling faintly in her chest. You find pride in risking death for a jest. Not pride, he said. Purpose. If I can make the most powerful person in the galaxy laugh once, maybe humanity's not as hopeless as everyone thinks. The Queen exhaled slowly, her amusement cooling into thoughtfulness. You speak like someone who's lost faith. Maybe I'm trying to borrow yours, he said. You have far too much of it, locked away behind armor. She stepped closer again, studying him as though trying to decode his anatomy. Do you not fear me, Earthling? Terrified, he said. But that's the funny thing about fear, it's easier to live with when you don't give it all your attention. She tilted her head, intrigued. You think of fear as something optional. No, he said, smiling faintly. I just learned to laugh at it before it laughs at me. The Queen's expression softened in a way that unsettled her own guards. There was a trace of wonder in her eyes now, a shimmer of something unspoken. You are unlike anything I have encountered, she said quietly. I'll take that as a compliment, he replied. It was not intended as one. Then it's my favorite insult, he said, and she almost laughed again before stopping herself. She turned sharply, walking back toward the throne, but the faintest smile lingered on her lips. You challenge boundaries you cannot see, she said. My kind does not take kindly to weakness, even in its rulers. Then maybe they need a reminder that even gods need to breathe, he said. The Queen paused at the foot of her throne, glancing over her shoulder. And what would you have me do, human? Start by not vaporizing me, he said. After that, I'm open to negotiation. Her laughter this time came softer, almost reluctant but genuine. You amuse me, Earthling. Few ever have. I'll take that as a diplomatic breakthrough. Do not mistake tolerance for friendship, she warned. Wouldn't dream of it, he said. I'd rather earn it. You're persistent, she said. It's genetic, he replied. The Queen regarded him for a long moment, something indecipherable flickering behind her silver eyes. Finally, she said, you may live, for now. That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me all week. Do not test me, she warned, but her tone had lost its edge. She turned toward her soldiers. Escort the human to guest quarters. Feed him, heal him, and ensure he speaks to no one. The guards bowed and obeyed, though confusion lingered on every face. As they led him out, Mark glanced back once, catching her watching him from the throne. For a brief second, their eyes met across the expanse of light and shadow, and he saw it clearly, amusement still glimmering there like starlight on water. The Queen of Thalren had laughed, and the universe would never be the same again. The guest quarters were nothing like Mark expected. Instead of a cell or holding bay, he found himself in a chamber carved from smooth crystal and metal veins that pulsed faintly like breathing stone. Warm light radiated from the walls, adjusting to his movement, responding almost sympathetically. It felt unnervingly alive. A translucent canopy stretched overhead, showing a view of the moonlit skyline of the Thalren capital, towers of gold, silver, and luminous glass rising into a sky carved with auroras. His uniform had been replaced with soft woven fabric that clung comfortably to his skin, and a plate of shimmering fruit sat untouched beside the bed. He paced slowly, mind racing. A few hours ago, he'd insulted an alien monarch. Now he was her guest, or prisoner, depending on the day's mood. Either she liked the joke, he muttered, or she's saving me for dessert. He turned at the sound of the door sliding open. One of the Queen's attendants, a tall, silver-eyed woman in ceremonial armor, stepped inside. Her radiance summons you, she said, voice cool and melodic. Mark raised an eyebrow. Already? Usually dictators give me at least one night before the next interrogation. The attendant's expression didn't change. You are not summoned for interrogation. That's almost worse, he murmured. Lead the way. She guided him through corridors that gleamed like liquid gold, every step accompanied by the rhythmic hum of the palace's living architecture. As they approached the grand throne chamber, the massive doors parted silently, revealing the Queen standing at the base of her dais, not seated this time. She turned toward him as if she had been waiting. She had changed out of ceremonial armor, now wearing lighter battleplate polished to mirror brightness, intricate designs glowing along the metal's edges. Her white hair shimmered under the firelight, cascading like a river of glass down her back. Mark couldn't help thinking she looked less like a ruler and more like something sculpted by the stars themselves. You rested? She asked, her tone carefully neutral. Tried to, he replied. Hard to sleep when I might get vaporized in my dreams. Her lips curved slightly. You are still afraid of me. Afraid, yes, he said. Terrified, maybe, but not enough to stop talking. That much was clear, she said dryly. Your courage borders on irritation. It's a family trait, he said. Keeps us interesting. She gestured for him to walk beside her rather than behind, a small gesture, but one that made every guard shift uneasily. You have unsettled my court, she said as they moved toward an arched balcony overlooking the city. They believe I have been compromised. Because you laughed, he asked. Because you made me, she said. No one has done that in centuries. They think laughter weakens power. He leaned against the railing, gazing at the city below. Maybe that's the problem with power. It forgets what it's protecting. She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You speak as if you understand rule. I've seen enough leaders to know the difference between fear and respect, he said. And most choose the wrong one. You believe I've chosen wrong, she asked. I think you stopped choosing, he said quietly. The Queen looked away, her gaze fixed on the city lights. When you've ruled long enough, she said, choice becomes another word for loss. I inherited a world built on conquest. Laughter was the first thing to die. Then maybe you're overdue for resurrection, he said. A single joke isn't resurrection, she replied. Depends on the joke, he said, grinning faintly. That earned him another small, involuntary smile, fleeting but real. You have an unshakable faith in foolishness, she said. Someone has to, he replied. The universe takes itself too seriously. She turned toward him fully then, her expression unreadable. And what does your faith demand now, human? Dinner would be nice, he said. Preferably something not glowing. To his surprise, she laughed again, softly this time, genuine amusement without hesitation. You risk your life for humor, yet your reward is food. It's a fair trade, he said. Starvation kills faster than sarcasm. She gestured to a nearby table that hadn't been there a moment before. The palace responded to her command, manifesting platters of food that glowed faintly under ethereal light. Eat, then, she said. But know this, each word you speak in my presence reaches ears across 1,000 systems. Your foolishness now echoes through history. Then history's about to get funnier, he said, picking up what looked like a fruit but tasted like honey and thunder. She watched him with fascination, as though studying a strange species, which, technically, she was. Your people once fought against mine, she said after a pause. Your kind nearly burned this world. And yours nearly conquered mine, he said. Yet here we are, sharing snacks instead of artillery. You think this meeting means peace? It means potential, he said. That's better than nothing. Her gaze softened slightly. You speak like a diplomat. I'm an engineer, he said. I fix things that are supposed to be impossible. And yet you fix people, she murmured. Sometimes, he said. If they're not too broken. The silence that followed was different, no longer hostile, but heavy with awareness. For the first time, she seemed uncertain, her eyes searching his face for something she couldn't define. You risk more than your life with your words, she said quietly. Maybe that's the only way they mean anything, he replied. They talked for hours, about Earth, about the Thalren's dying star, about what it meant to carry a crown when everyone else was gone. Her laughter came easier now, sometimes hesitant, sometimes free, each time peeling back another layer of the Iron Queen the galaxy feared. When he joked about her armor being a little too dramatic for dinner, she smirked. You dislike gold. Not at all, he said. It just looks heavy. Weight reminds me what I carry, she replied. Then you need lighter armor, he said softly. Or maybe lighter memories. She looked away then, but not before he saw the flicker of emotion cross her features. Your words cut deeper than your weapons, she said. Then I'm a better talker than fighter, he said. Most of humanity's evolution went into sarcasm anyway. Later that night, as the city dimmed and the fires within the hall burned low, she turned to him once more. I have never kept a human alive this long, she said. I noticed, he replied. I'm still trying to figure out if that's progress. Perhaps, she said. Or perhaps I simply wish to understand why you are different. Different how? He asked. You do not kneel, yet you do not defy. You fear me, yet you do not tremble. You don't need another servant, he said. You need someone who sees you. Her eyes glimmered like molten silver. And you see me. I see someone who forgot she's allowed to be seen. The words hung there, quiet and dangerous. For the first time, the Queen didn't answer. The next morning, whispers spread through the palace like fire. The Queen had shared a meal with the human. She had laughed, twice. The council demanded an explanation, the priests muttered of omens. When she entered the throne hall, her advisers knelt but avoided her eyes. They fear you have been bewitched, one dared to say. By a mortal. By a mirror, she corrected coldly. He reflects what we lost. They fell silent, though suspicion lingered. That night, when she summoned Mark again, her tone was sharper. Your words have consequences, she said. You've made them question me. Then tell them you chose to laugh, he said. They won't believe it, she said. Then make them, he replied. Show them that laughter isn't weakness, it's freedom. She stared at him, and something like pride touched her gaze. You speak as though you command me. No, he said. I remind you that you can command yourself. The next day, the Queen held court again, not in silence, but in defiance of her council's fear. As she entered, she smiled openly, letting her voice carry warmth instead of steel. The hall gasped at the sight. My people, she declared, have forgotten that strength is not silence. Fear built our empire, perhaps it is time joy sustains it. The murmurs of disbelief turned into a wave of uncertain reverence. From the shadows, Mark watched quietly, heart pounding. When her gaze found him at the back of the hall, she held it for only a second, long enough to let him know she remembered who gave her courage to laugh. That single second was enough to change the empire forever. The Queen's voice carried through the hall like thunder softened by dawn. Her words shook the pillars not through volume but through meaning, echoing down every marble corridor of the palace. No one had ever heard her speak this way, without command, without threat, only with conviction. Mark stood near the rear of the chamber, half hidden among the shadows, his pulse racing. He'd never meant to become a symbol of anything. Yet here he was, the human who made a god laugh. And now that laughter had turned into a movement. The soldiers knelt not in fear but in confusion, torn between tradition and awe. He saw it in their faces, the same mix of disbelief and hope that always followed the first crack in a wall. "She's doing it," he whispered under his breath. "She's changing the narrative." When the assembly finally dispersed, the Queen dismissed her council with a gesture sharp enough to end arguments before they began. As the last echo faded, she turned toward him. Her expression was unreadable, though her eyes gleamed like sunlight through silver water. "You shouldn't have stayed," she said. "The crowd might think you orchestrated this." "Maybe I did," he said with a faint smile. "Accidentally." She exhaled softly. "Everything about you feels accidental." "That's humanity's secret," he said. "We stumble into progress." "Then perhaps I envy you," she murmured. "My people plan centuries ahead, and yet we forgot joy." He shrugged. "You can't plan for laughter. It happens when the world stops watching." "And yet the world watched me today," she said. "And I laughed anyway." "That," he said, "is what makes it matter." Later that night, the palace quieted to a heartbeat. Outside, the sky glowed faintly with the reflection of the twin moons. Mark found himself standing on the same balcony where they had first talked openly. The city below pulsed with new light, torches lit not in fear but in celebration. He could hear faint singing, something between a hymn and a cheer. Ceres, her personal attendant, approached with a small data slate. "Her radiance requests your presence," she said. "Again?" he asked, grinning. "Doesn't she have an empire to run?" "Apparently," Ceres said dryly, "she prefers conversation to conquest." "That's progress," he said, and followed her. The corridor shimmered faintly with residual energy, and when the doors to the Queen's private chamber opened, he stopped short. Gone was the armor and ceremony. She stood by the great window wearing a simple robe woven from silver threads that caught the starlight. She turned when she heard him enter, and for the first time, she looked human. Not in form, but in presence, softer, unguarded. "You've caused me considerable chaos," she said. "You're welcome," he replied. She arched an eyebrow. "You think this pleases me?" "You're still smiling," he said, and she realized he was right. "I should banish you for your insolence." "You won't," he said. "You need me." "For what?" she asked. "To keep reminding you that you're more than a title," he said. Her laugh this time came without resistance. "You truly believe words can undo centuries of command?" "One laugh already did," he said. "Imagine two." "You are insufferable," she said, shaking her head. "And yet," he said softly, "you keep calling me back." They spoke until dawn again, though the topics grew less political and more personal. She asked about Earth, not its wars or technology, but its art, its songs, the small things that survived collapse. He told her about ocean winds and old jazz, about how laughter could stop a bar fight faster than reason ever could. In turn, she told him about the birth of her world, of how her ancestors tamed lightning and named themselves gods. "Power came easily," she said. "Wisdom did not." "That's a universal problem," he said. "Power forgets it's supposed to serve." "And you think laughter solves this?" she asked. "It helps," he said. "It makes people remember they're still people." She was silent for a while, then said quietly, "You speak like someone who believes we can still change." "If I didn't," he said, "I'd never open my mouth." Days passed, and word of the Queen's newfound demeanor spread beyond the capital. On outer colonies, governors whispered that the Thalren ruler smiled now, that she greeted envoys with humor rather than intimidation. What began as rumor became symbol, and symbols moved faster than armies. Mark saw it happen from within, citizens daring to speak, guards lowering their weapons when addressing civilians. The palace musicians returned to their craft after centuries of silence, filling the grand halls with sound. "You've infected us," the Queen told him one morning with mock accusation. "With what?" he asked. "With humanity." "Careful," he said, "it's contagious." "I know," she said softly, "and I no longer fear it. But peace always breeds opposition." On the 10th day of her reform, the High Command staged a protest. Generals filled the council chamber, their armor black as midnight, their faces carved in distrust. "Your laughter weakens our empire," one declared. "Our enemies will see it as decay." "Then let them," she replied calmly. "We will outlive their bitterness." "You risk revolt," another warned. "You risk extinction," she countered. When they turned their ire toward Mark, accusing him of manipulation, she rose to her full height. "He is under my protection," she said. "And under my instruction." The hall fell silent. "If you doubt my resolve," she added coldly, "you may test it at your peril." When they left, trembling and silent, she turned toward him. "They hate you." "They'll get over it," he said. "Or I will." "You make light of danger," she said. "That's the only way I survive it," he replied. That evening, she summoned him to the throne room again, but this time, no audience watched. The firelight reflected off the golden walls, painting her in warmth. "They will move against me soon," she said quietly. "You were right. Change terrifies those who built their thrones on silence." "Then we'll outlast them," he said. "How?" "By being louder," he said. "By proving laughter's harder to kill than fear." She gave him a long look. "You believe that?" "I have to," he said. "It's all humanity's ever had." Her gaze softened. "You risk everything for something invisible." "So did you," he said. "You risked your empire for a laugh." She smiled faintly. "Then perhaps we are both fools." "The best kind," he said. "The ones who accidentally fix everything." Not long after, rebellion sparked in the outer provinces. Old loyalists accused the queen of corruption, claiming the human had bewitched her. The palace entered lockdown, corridors crawling with soldiers. "You should leave," she told him. "You've done enough." "I'm not going," he said. "You'll be killed if they break through." "Then I'll die trying to make your people smile," he said. Her expression faltered between anger and disbelief. "You would die for a jest." "For what it means," he said quietly. "That laughter's still possible." For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she placed a hand on his shoulder, the smallest, most human gesture she had ever made. "Then you are a greater fool than I imagined," she said. "And yet," he murmured, "you're still smiling." When the coup finally reached the palace, the walls shook with explosions. Loyalists clashed with rebels in the courtyards, energy weapons blazing through the night. Mark stood beside the queen at the balcony as the sky turned red with fire. "They are coming," he said. "Let them," she replied, calm and regal. "They wish to see what laughter looks like when it stands unbroken." "That sounds poetic," he said. "Almost human." "You've corrupted me," she said. "I'll take credit later," he replied. As the first wave breached the gates, she raised her hand, not in fury but in command. "Stand down," she ordered her guards. "We fight no more." "They'll kill us," Mark said. "No," she said. "They will listen." And somehow, they did. Perhaps it was the power in her voice, or perhaps the exhaustion that always follows too many centuries of fear. The fighting slowed, weapons lowering one by one. She stepped forward into the chaos, her silver hair catching firelight, her voice carrying over the crowd. "You fear I've weakened us," she said. "But weakness is when a world forgets how to feel. I have not betrayed you. I have remembered us." Murmurs rippled through the soldiers. Mark stood behind her, ready to dive between her and a bolt if it came to that. But none came. One by one, the rebels fell to their knees. A sound spread through the crowd, not cheers, not tears, but a strange, collective sigh, as though the planet itself exhaled after centuries of silence. The queen looked back at him. "You see," she said softly. "Laughter was stronger." He exhaled shakily, adrenaline fading. "I'll never argue with that again." "You'd better not," she said, smiling. Together they watched as the fires dimmed, the city glowing gold once more. In the days that followed, the rebellion dissolved, its leaders pardoned instead of executed. The queen declared a new era, not of conquest but of connection. Statues of warriors were melted down and recast as instruments that played in the streets. The people called it the Age of Resonance. And at the center of it stood one bewildered human, still wondering how a bad joke had turned into a revolution. The age of resonance arrived like sunrise after a storm. Where there had once been the cold gleam of weapons, there were now fires for song and gathering. The Queen of Thalren had ordered the old war forges repurposed into halls of creation, the molten gold once used for armor now shaping instruments, sculptures, and light. Every tower shimmered with symbols of rebirth. Mark wandered through it in quiet disbelief, unsure whether to laugh or cry at what his words had started. He saw soldiers painting instead of drilling, citizens smiling as they rebuilt ruined plazas, and alien children chasing reflections of the twin moons. The city no longer sounded like discipline, it breathed. And still, at the heart of it all, stood the Queen, radiant and resolute, her laughter now legend whispered through every corridor. He was walking beside the reflecting pools one evening when Ceres, her attendant, approached. "The council calls it her madness," she said, her voice low. "They think you poisoned her resolve." "Maybe laughter's a kind of poison," Mark said. "But at least it's slow." "They will move again soon," Ceres warned. "Even peace creates enemies." "Then I guess it's her turn to teach them how to listen," he said. "You trust her that much?" "More than I trust empires," he replied. Ceres regarded him with something between pity and admiration. "You've changed her," she said. "Or maybe she's changed you." He looked at the city glowing around them. "Maybe both," he said. When he looked up, the Queen was standing at the balcony above, watching the world she'd remade with the kind of pride that wasn't possession but belonging. Later that night, she summoned him again, not as a ruler to an envoy but as someone seeking conversation. He found her on the same moonlit dais where he'd once insulted her, but the air between them felt different now, almost gentle. "They whisper of betrayal," she said softly. "They think peace makes us fragile." "Maybe it makes you finally worth saving," he said. "You always twist meaning into comfort," she replied. "It's a human defect," he said. "We can't stand silence for too long." "And yet you created it here," she said, glancing toward the quiet city. "That's your doing." "No," he said. "It's yours. I just reminded you you're allowed to breathe." Her silver eyes studied him for a long time. "Do you ever stop speaking in riddles?" "Only when I'm asleep," he said, and she laughed again, brighter than before. That laugh carried across the marble hall, softening its edges. "Every time you laugh," he said quietly, "this place feels less like a monument and more like a heartbeat." She turned her head, caught off guard by the intimacy in his tone. "You would risk being misunderstood again, Earthling." "Seems to be working so far," he said. "The universe doesn't need another hero. It just needs one person to say something unexpected." "You've said enough unexpected things to last a millennium," she replied, but there was warmth behind her words. They stood in silence for a while, gazing at the reflection of the moon on the polished floor. "Do you ever miss your home?" she asked suddenly. "Every day," he said. "But sometimes I think I found something better here." She looked at him, startled, then smiled faintly. "Careful," she said. "My people will start writing songs about you." "Only if they rhyme human with trouble," he said. She almost doubled over laughing at that, the sound echoing through the chamber until even the guards smiled behind their visors. In the weeks that followed, peace held. Trade opened between worlds that had been enemies for centuries. The Queen sent emissaries of culture instead of conquest, and wherever they went, they carried the story of the Earthling who made her laugh. It became a myth, reshaped and retold. Some said he'd bewitched her with a spell, others claimed he'd reminded her of mortality. To Mark, the truth was simpler. He'd just said the one thing no one else dared. But beneath the celebration, darker currents stirred. The same high command that had once tried rebellion now turned to secrecy. Old generals vanished from the capital. Mysterious signals flared from the outer rim. The Queen knew it, though she said nothing publicly. When she finally called Mark to her council chamber, her expression told him enough. "They mean to end me," she said. "They mean to end us," he corrected. Her gaze flickered. "You could leave," she said. "Your ship has been repaired. I would allow it." "You're trying to get rid of me." "I'm trying to save you." "Then we're both terrible at it," he said. "You can't stop what's coming," she warned. "Maybe not," he said, "but you don't have to face it alone." You think I would risk your life for sentiment? I think you already have, he said softly. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she looked away, voice low. You've ruined my composure, Earthling. And you've ruined my understanding of aliens, he said. Fair trade. Foolish creature, she murmured, though there was affection in the words. Always, he said. That's why we win. When the first fleet arrived from the outer colonies, it came not in open war but under the pretense of negotiation. Their ships, cold, jagged things built for intimidation, entered orbit and sent no transmission. The Queen stood at the palace tower with Mark beside her, watching the stars bloom with red engines. They'll strike before dawn, she said. You can still evacuate. You'll need someone to tell the jokes, he said. Mark, no speeches, he interrupted. If this is where it ends, then at least it ends with laughter instead of screams. She turned toward him, eyes wide with something that might have been fear, not for herself but for him. You are the strangest creature I've ever met, she said. And you're the best reason I've had to believe in miracles, he replied. The assault came with the rising light of Thalren's twin suns. Energy fire rained down on the city, but instead of collapsing, the golden towers absorbed the impact, glowing brighter. The Queen's engineers had rewritten the ancient defense fields into mirrors of radiant energy. You planned this, Mark said, astonished. You thought I only ruled by decree, she said, smiling faintly. I listened to your engineers. Adaptation is the heart of survival. Now that's human, he said. No, she said. That's us. She raised her arm, and the palace sent out a resonance wave, pure sound, neither weapon nor shield, but vibration tuned to harmony. The attackers' ships faltered as the frequency disrupted their systems. Across the horizon, explosions bloomed like stars collapsing. The sound that saved the planet wasn't a scream of war, it was music. When the smoke cleared, the Queen stood amidst the shimmering dawn, her armor reflecting gold. Mark, bruised but alive, stared at her in disbelief. You fought them with a song, he said. You inspired it, she said. I told my scientists to capture laughter's waveform. Its frequency disarms aggression. You weaponized humor, he said, grinning. The irony's killing me. It saved us, she said softly. And perhaps it will save more. The city roared in triumph as the surviving invaders surrendered. The Queen looked out over her people, her expression both regal and heartbreakingly human. They'll tell legends about this, Mark said. They already do, she replied. But this time, they'll tell them with a smile. That night, celebration returned to the halls that once echoed with silence. Fires burned in great golden basins, music pulsed through the palace, and the Queen, for the first time, descended from her throne to dance among her people. She moved with grace born of centuries but joy as fresh as rain. When she reached Mark, she took his hand without hesitation. You've changed everything, she said. You've reminded me why we exist. To laugh, he asked. To live, she said. Laughter was the door. They danced beneath the twin moons, her laughter mingling with his until the night felt endless. And for a moment, in a world once built on conquest, two beings, one human, one divine, simply existed, free of everything but the sound of joy. The celebration lasted for 7 suns and nights, each brighter than the one before. Every tower shimmered with the golden banners of rebirth, and the great plazas echoed with music that had not been heard for half a millennium. The Queen of Thalren no longer watched from her dais but walked among her people, her laughter rising like light itself. It was a sight that rewrote history, the divine ruler of an empire once built on silence, now smiling with the species she had once despised. Mark moved through the crowd in quiet awe, his heart unmoored by the transformation. The world that had nearly killed him was now alive with color and sound. And though he didn't belong to it, he felt, for the first time in his life, that he was part of something larger than survival. When the music finally faded and the last of the revelers drifted home, the Queen found him standing alone beneath the spires. Her armor was gone again, replaced by a cloak woven from living light. You look like someone remembering a dream, she said softly. Maybe I am, he said. Or maybe I'm afraid to wake up. You've earned rest, she said. More than any I've known. Can't rest yet, he said. Still work to do. What work could remain, she asked. You saved my world. Your world saved itself, he said. I just threw the first rock at the wall. She smiled faintly. You make simplicity sound like prophecy. That's the human condition, he said. We improvise meaning. They walked through the royal gardens, where silver vines curled around luminous trees and the air smelled faintly of ozone and rain. The scientists analyzed the resonance wave, she said. They claim it aligned with human laughter frequencies. It did not destroy, it calmed. So the galaxy's first weapon of peace, he asked. Perhaps the only one, she said. It proves that joy can shape matter. He chuckled quietly. Now there's a headline. What is that? She asked. An Earth phrase, he said. Means the story people will remember. Then let this be your headline, Earthling, she said, turning to face him. You taught a god to laugh, and a world remembered how to feel. The words hit him like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He wanted to reply, but all he could manage was a nod. Days turned to weeks, and peace spread beyond Thalren. Neighboring worlds sent emissaries not of conquest but curiosity. They wanted to understand how one emotion could halt a war. The Queen called it the *Harmony Accords*, and she insisted that Mark stand beside her as co-architect. I don't do politics, he said. Then do humanity, she replied. They need to see you. You sure that's wise? He asked. Your people still think I'm a dangerous influence. You are, she said with a smile. But sometimes danger is the only thing that keeps life interesting. That's a terrifying endorsement, he said. And yet, she said, you're still here. He couldn't argue with that. When the first accord ceremony began, he stood beside her before thousands of delegates and watched as laughter, translated into pure tone, echoed across a dozen species. For once, the universe didn't sound like fear. But not everyone welcomed this new era. Deep in the forgotten sectors, factions of the old empire gathered in secret, furious at what they called the contamination. They called themselves the purity line *, convinced that Thalren blood was divine and laughter a disease brought by man. Mark heard the rumors but dismissed them, until one night when the palace lights dimmed and the air shivered with an unfamiliar pulse. He was in the observatory with Ceres when alarms blared through the sky. They've breached orbit, she said. Not ships, weapons. The Queen appeared moments later, her cloak dissolving into armor. They carry a weapon built to counter resonance, she said grimly. A silence field. They want to erase sound itself, Mark realized. They want to erase *us*, she said. The first wave struck the outer districts, and the world fell mute. The golden towers flickered as though choked by unseen hands. Mark felt the weight of it instantly. No vibration, no hum, just suffocating stillness. We have to stop it, he said. Our defenses won't work, Ceres warned. The field negates energy and sound alike. The Queen's eyes burned with defiance. Then we fight with what they cannot contain, will. She turned to him. You once told me laughter hides where the world stops watching. Perhaps that is where we must go. What are you thinking? He asked. If silence kills sound, she said, then we'll make silence listen. It made no sense, and yet he trusted her. He always had. They moved to the central spire where the resonance engines still glowed faintly, their power drained by the spreading void. Engineers worked in frantic silence, their mouths moving without sound. The Queen stepped into the chamber and raised her hands, linking her biometrics to the core. The wave still remembers laughter, she said through the implant channel. But it needs something human to complete it. Why me? He asked. Because the universe hears you differently, she said. You speak, and meaning changes shape. He didn't understand it, but he stepped forward anyway, placing his hand on the crystalline interface. His heartbeat echoed through the machine. She placed her hand over his, and for a moment, the silence itself seemed to bend. The light returned, faint at first, then growing brighter, fed by every laugh, every note, every breath the planet had ever held. When the silence field reached the palace, the wave erupted outward like dawn breaking through shadow. It wasn't sound that shattered the attack, it was emotion. The field convulsed, collapsing in on itself as the resonance ignited. The enemy ships disintegrated in light, their frequencies undone by what they had sought to erase. When it was over, the world exhaled. Sound returned like rain, slow and miraculous. The Queen stumbled, the glow fading from her eyes. Mark caught her as she fell. "You're hurt," he said. "The wave demanded balance," she whispered. "It took energy from both of us." "Then I'll give it back," he said. "You can't," she said weakly. "You already gave everything that matters." He looked around at the city, broken but alive. "I didn't come this far to watch you fade." She smiled faintly. "And yet, if I do, at least I'll go laughing." She survived the night, though barely. Her body entered stasis to heal, the palace suspended in silence once more, but this time, it was peace, not fear. Weeks passed before she opened her eyes again. When she did, Mark was there, asleep at her side, a datapad filled with letters from across the galaxy in his lap. Messages of gratitude. Stories of laughter in languages that had never known the word. "You collected all this?" she asked softly. He startled awake. "You're supposed to be resting." "And you're supposed to be gone," she said. "Guess I failed both orders," he said. "You always do," she whispered. "That's how you fix things." "I don't fix," he said. "I just remind." "Then remind me," she said, eyes closing again, "what laughter sounds like." He leaned close, speaking softly so that only she could hear. "It sounds like defiance wrapped in sunlight. Like the universe realizing it's still young. Like you." Her lips curved in the faintest smile. "Then let it never end." And somehow, it didn't. When she recovered fully, she announced her abdication, not out of weakness but evolution. "A world led by one voice will always forget harmony," she told the council. "Let it sing on its own." She passed the crown to a council of citizens chosen by merit, then turned to Mark. "And you?" she asked. "Where will you go?" He looked out at the horizon. "Maybe back to the stars," he said. "Maybe nowhere. Guess I'll find out." "You could stay," she said. "You'd be welcome." He smiled gently. "You already gave me what I came for, proof that humanity matters." On the day of his departure, the city gathered at the spaceport. The Queen, no longer robed in gold, just dressed like one of her people, approached him quietly. "The universe will forget names," she said. "But it will remember what we taught it." "To laugh?" he asked. "To feel," she said. "But yes, laughter was the start." He grinned. "Guess I should come up with another bad joke before I go." "Spare me," she said, but the corners of her eyes shimmered with warmth. As he boarded the shuttle, she called out one last time. "Earthling." He turned. "Yes. You said once that laughter hides where the world stops watching. I'll make sure it never hides again." He saluted awkwardly. "Do that, and you'll outshine gods." "You already made me one," she said softly. And for the third time in her life, she laughed, the sound carrying across the stars as his ship lifted toward the endless night. Generations later, the Thalren archives would record the legend of the Laughing Queen and the human who spoke the unspeakable. Scholars debated whether the stories were true, whether a single word could truly shift a civilization. But in the heart of the galaxy, where sound travels slow and memory faster, there remained a frequency no machine could map, a pulse that hummed like a smile waiting to be remembered. And if one listened closely, past the stars and static, they would still hear it, the faint echo of laughter, defiant and human, strong enough to outlive silence itself.